a sense of community when you're free. Rolling through the mountains, rolling through the valley, rolling through paradise with me.
Hello, everyone. Well, if you know anybody who's a comedian, there are the type that are always on, as long as to give them an audience. And I'm not talking about necessarily a stage, but if they're with friends, whatever, they're on. Then there's the others, they wait to pee till they're on stage. So today's guest, let's find out which kind he is time to welcome Abhi Pamnani. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Nancy. Great to be here.
So what type of a comedian are you? On all the time or semi or?
I want to say on all the time. Yeah, in general. I think that's how I kind of found out and felt like I had that comedic bone, but sometimes it hits, sometimes it doesn't, like any comedy. Like I could be, but most of the time it's good. It's good. And I think the whole goal is to be as comfortable on stage as I am off stage, with my friends and stuff. So
yeah, right. Yeah. What about when you were younger? Were you entertaining in the classroom or anything like that?
Entertaining is a polite way of putting it. Disruptive is what came in the report card. Yeah. But when I was younger, I was a very hyperactive kid. So I think that energy definitely needed to be channeled somewhere. So I was entertaining, but it wasn't seen that way at the time. I wouldn't say I was funny. But I had quirks.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because when I think about school, if you're not academically inclined or whatever, if you're not, if you're one of the artistic kids or something a little bit different, you don't get the same kind of recognition, right?
Maybe, yeah. With me, it was also weird because it wasn't that I was bad in school. Like I had good grades and stuff, but I was bad socially. You know what I mean? Like I was like, my teachers were like, "Hey, can we please control you somehow?" And they talked to my parents about it. So I think that was the issue there. And eventually, my parents were like, "Hey, you're gonna do every single thing we can think of." So they put me into painting and music and tennis. And then tennis took over for quite some time. And then comedy sort of started happening on its own, like very, very recently, actually.
Was that right? How recently?
I'm coming up on 2 years now. So I've always been, I think I was always one of those kids who, because I didn't have a lot of friends for the same reason of like being very hyperactive and disruptive, I kind of started becoming a movie buff, and I would watch a lot of movies, and that would be my free time stuff. And then that translated into watching comedy, I want to say early on in university.
Yeah.
And from there on, I want to say in 2022, I went and watched Russell Howard. He's a British comic. And I was finally like, I feel like I got to do this and give it a shot. So I'm very good friends with failure in general. Like I really am very shameless and I don't mind failing. So that kind of helped keep it going. And now it's coming up on 2 years.
Very good. Yeah. So thinking back to that first time you stepped on stage, what was that like?
Yeah. It was nerve-wracking. It was nerve-wracking, but it was also like, exciting. And I think the thing I did know was that if this doesn't go well, it's fine. I'm going to step on stage again tomorrow. So there was definitely that, but I have pretty much all my stand-up saved from, the whole year that I started. And I still see those videos and you can tell the nervousness is there. But I was excited for it. Like I knew that there was like maybe one or two jokes that might get a laugh. Of course, they weren't very good, but they still got it. Was just enough to make sure that I get on again. So that was the experience, and I started off at this nice little club called Nothing Fancy in Toronto. They're closed now, but I started off there. And then I went to this other club. It's actually a restaurant, but they run a mic there. It's called Folk and Comedy, run at Poorhouse. So I did those two in the same day, pretty much, which is April 3rd. And then 1 week into it, and if anybody ever from BC is coming to Toronto, I would highly recommend checking out Comedy Lab. It's an indie club, And 1 week into comedy, this is at 2 a.m. in the morning. A lot of open mics when you're new. That's what happens. Like you're staying. You're the very last person to go up, and nobody's there. But that was my biggest laugh. Like when I started off, and it was incredible. And then you're just hooked from there on. You know.
Exactly. Anytime you're on stage and it goes well, right? You just want look at that same feeling all the time, right?
Yeah. And so far, I can say with confidence, nothing comes close to it. You know. Like I don't think I was never a party kid, but the little that I've had to party or like, you know, go out with and socialize, it doesn't come close to the feeling of making a whole room of strangers laugh and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been going well.
So how does your family feel about it, and have they been to any of your shows?
No, actually. So a little bit background about me is I grew up in the Middle East. I'm an Indian kid by origin, and when I was about 3 or 5, my parents moved to the Middle East in Qatar. We had the FIFA World Cup there in 2022. So I grew up there my entire life, and that's where they were in my first year of comedy. They've now retired and gone back to India, so they've actually never even been to Canada. My brother is lives in Richmond Hill in the GTA, and he is my younger brother. He's 6 years younger, and he has that exact, you know, attitude of a younger brother. He's like, I couldn't really care less if you're doing comedy or not, dude. So none of them have been there, but every now and then my mom will comment and be like, oh, I really like what you're doing. I like seeing you laugh and smile, and I'm like, thanks. And that's pretty much it. But they are supportive. They are supportive in general. My dad, a little bit more skeptical. He's always like, hey, why don't you focus on your day job and have a stable career in life? And then he'll backtrack and be like, yeah, but do your comedy too. So it's a very immigrant parenting thing there.
Yeah, for sure. Gosh, I had a question in mind and now it's just gone out of my head.
Sorry, I ramble on so much.
No, that's not a problem. That's what interviews are. It's about you speaking, not me. Now, this is going to be aired on Wednesday. Do you have anything coming up after that people can go to?
Yeah, so I have I have all my shows that I list out on my Instagram.
Okay.
So in fact, I think on February 2nd and 3rd, I'm touring with Ashwin Singh. He's a big Indian Canadian comic, and he's going to Belleville and Kingston.
Right.
And so that's going to be exciting. But on Wednesday, I'm not even entirely sure what is the date on Wednesday. The biggest thing that I can plug in and say is that if you're in Toronto, please consider checking out Breakpoint Comedy. I've just started producing it with my friend Ryan, and we've had our first 2 shows were last year, towards the end of last year, and they were great.
Right.
One of them sold out. The other one was almost sold out. So if you are in Toronto, definitely check that out. With Breakpoint, our goal is sort of to make sure we highlight as many Canadian pros as we can. We feel like there's a good room for audiences to know about Canadian comedy and know about the pros who are equally as big or have the caliber of being as big as some of the household names that you know.
Right.
So we try and bring in as many of those comics, and of course, selfishly, Ryan and I get to improve, hopefully, looking at them. But the show is great. We've been getting good reviews. So if you're ever in town, watch Breakpoint Comedy. DM me, and I'll make sure that you get a fan discount and stuff. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Very good. Yeah. So for your comedy, your skits, are you a clean performer? Like, are you dropping the F-bomb? Like, just an idea.
For me, as a comedian, it's very important to be versatile, and also because I'm such a baby in this game right now. I'm still finding my own voice and things I enjoy.
Yeah.
So I've been lucky enough to do some dark material and get away with it, and it goes off really well. And I feel I'm kind of cheeky, so I enjoy that a lot. But then I also find a lot of pleasure in doing absolutely clean comedy. And talking about things like pickleball and I feel like if you as a comedian are able to make something really, really silly, really funny, take your Jim Gaffigan who can talk about a bottle of water for 5 minutes, then that's a skill set in its own. And I try and strive to be able to do both as well as I possibly can. So in short, yeah, if the room calls for it, and some days I'll have that mood of where I just want to go and feel like, it's how you are with your closest friend group. You don't really care about what's being said. Some days it's going to be that way, and then other days it's more about just practicing the craft and trying to see if you can get away without saying an f-bomb and then getting that laugh. So I'm still bouncing in between those two.
Right, yeah, for sure. Who are some
Yeah.
of your favorite comedians?
Oh, great question. I love this question. So right now, Andrew Schultz is one of my favorite comedians. And I should mention Tyler Morrison. He's probably one of the best roasters in Canada, who recently also opened for Andrew Schultz at Niagara Falls and Windsor, and people should definitely check him out. But Andrew Schultz, specifically because of his ability to connect with pretty much any audience. Like in my opinion, this guy uh, can make a small room feel intimate, but also make an arena feel intimate. And I went and saw his live tour, and it was just an amazing experience. So Andrew Schultz is one for that. I really enjoy Bill Burr. I think I think he's able to. He's the everyday blue collar man who's able to talk about problems as like a man and still make every kind of audience that he interacts with laugh. So Bill Burr is really funny, and then of course Russell Howard. Russell Howard is one of those comics who talks a lot about his relationship with his mom, and that that feeling of being able to make personal, mundane stories really interesting and make us all feel like, yeah, I can relate to that. I think that is exceptional. So yeah, Russell Howard, Bill Burr, Andrew Schultz, and then yeah, I don't know the fourth. There's so many good ones. I don't really know who to think. Daniel Sloss is a UK comic. He's a Scottish comic. He's dark, and I really like that. So yeah, I'd say those four.
Right. Do you think, my take is anyway, with the British, they can seem to get away, they seem to be able to get away with a lot more things on stage than North Americans.
Probably, yeah, yeah. I think you're definitely onto something with there, because I feel like they're the humor and this. I was talking to another really good local comic. His name's Cameron Phoenix the other day, and he's a pro, and he's with Yuck Yucks, and he does some amazing things. And he was telling me about his time that he spent in the UK. The humor there is very, very dry. And I feel like that style of comedy might almost lend itself to getting away with stuff. Like if you look at, say, someone like Anthony Jeselnik, who's known for like a dry, dark, jokes only, he gets away with all of his dark material. So I think there's that. With North America, we're also like, especially living in Toronto, I've experienced this. There's two sides of the scene where one's very very, very liberal, left-wing focused, and then there's the right-wing focus scene that comes out. So I think we have that dynamic of like there's so many voices, and the struggle, or the good struggle, is always that we're trying to make sure everybody's heard and everybody feels in a safe space that they can say things. So sometimes with that comes the conflict of like, oh, what are you saying? Is it funny enough for everybody? And is the intent right? And I think that is where things get a little murky, but it's good for comedy overall. Like I think it gets better.
Right. Yeah. Like a lot of people, I've seen a lot of comedians. I've done some myself, and I sometimes think that comedians need to know their audience a little bit.
100%, 100%. Yesterday I was at a room doing a competition, and it went really well for me. But there was this one joke that I do, and I really enjoy doing that joke. It's something great. It's something special. But for that room, that joke wasn't right,
Yeah.
and we made our way out of it. And I'm happy about that. But I feel like it all comes down to what stage of comedy you're in and what do you really want to do. Because I feel there's comedians who are like, no, this is my art, man, and I'm gonna say what I want to say. And then you're like, well, that's great. And if you're funny, and if you can convey that in the right way, then fantastic. But if you can't, and the audience is silent, and it's happening over time, then maybe it's time to go back and reflect on what you're doing and if it's really worth it for you.
Yeah, yeah,
So
for sure.
so yeah, there's definitely a balance of following your art and your style, and then learning what's the best way to say the things you want to say, and if they're worth being said, I guess.
Yeah, but don't you think that being a comedian, the job is to entertain,
Yeah.
right? And if you're not entertaining because you're into your own stuff, like
Mhm.
what's the point, right?
Yeah, definitely. That is like the baseline and the fundamental of what it comes down to. Like
Yeah.
it's Mark. I was listening to Mark Norman's on a podcast the other day, or like even Anthony Jeselnik, and they said something. Both of them said something very similar. They were like, everybody's trying to make a point these days, and but really, comedy is about entertainment, and it's about making sure your audience is
Yeah.
having a good time.
Yeah.
And again, that varies. There's nothing wrong with making a point. Some of the best comedians, George Carlin, the Pryors, Lenny Bruce's, these guys push the boundaries of comedy. But
Mhm.
for the vast majority of us, we're on the local scene and grinding it at mics and in clubs. I think the baseline is to be like a really good entertainer,
Yeah.
and maybe being able to tell your own story. Like for me, it was like almost 2 years in. That's the goal right now, to get more personal, tell my own story. And then if out of that something is dark or something is
Mhm.
not a part of the culture and the society you're living in right now, I think that's fine, as long as you know how to convey it, because nobody's going to think that, oh, this guy is ignorant. They'll just be like, well,
Yeah.
this is his story, this is where he came from.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely be funny first. And I've heard so many people who are like, well, funny is subjective. Yeah, but if a whole room of 40, 50 people are not laughing, one or two people not laughing is fine, and one or two people getting offended or not enjoying it, that's fine. They're not your audience. But if everyone's not laughing, then you have a problem, right? So be
Absolutely.
funny and then make whatever points you want to make and say your own thing, I guess. That's
Right.
just, and I could be very naive. So,
Without naming it, has there had
yes.
been a place where you perform where you think, oh, I'm never going back there?
No, no,
No?
I, like I said, I'm so shameless with failure, and like uh I can tell you, I won't name it, but like there was this place, beautiful room, and a lot of the rooms that you sometimes when you do, I guess at my level coming up, are not the best rooms for comedy. They're not really comedy rooms.
Yeah.
There's people there who are doing their thing, and comedy is like secondary.
Yeah.
um but either way, this was a show. It was like a magic and a comedy show, which sometimes can be a good combination, but more often than not, I've seen it not work. But either way, so this was a show, and it was like during the daytime, and big windows, and the sunlight's coming through, and you can see the whole audience. They can see you, and just everything you were saying is just not. You were almost trying to like struggle to get like the room together, and
Yeah.
it was a big room, and it did not go great. It didn't feel great. And then a very established pro and very good person, they went after me, and they did their thing. And of course, for them, their performance, I feel like it wasn't where they would usually be,
Yeah.
but the way they handled that situation and the way I handled it, of course, different. And I learned a lot that day. So some rooms, there are like, I guess you just can't do anything, or like you can try the best you have with the skill you have and take away the lessons you can. Uh, but I, at this stage, would go to every room I possibly can,
Very good.
because I feel like one of the best things you can do as a comedian is experimenting your material in front of different kinds of audiences, different rooms, different hours. Because if a joke works at like 2 in the morning, in front of four people who've seen 3 hours of open mic comedy, there's a good chance that that joke might actually be funny,
All right.
or like you might be funny at least in some capacity.
Have you had to
Yeah.
deal with any hecklers?
I've dealt with some hecklers. There was a there was one lady at a show that I was hosting, and she kind of heckled me mid joke, and it went really well for me, and I was very happy. And then afterwards, she came up to me after the show, and she's like, "Oh, you're really good with hecklers, aren't you?" I'm like, "Well, I was good today," and but it's always, I think it's a nice to see. Um, it's nice to see responding to hecklers. I feel like if you do it well,
Hmm.
then you can. It's nice to see them be on your side afterwards.
Yeah,
You
for
know,
sure.
uh, and that's I've only experienced that once or twice, and I like hecklers, to be honest with you. I do enjoy it, because I feel like the worst thing that you can have at a comedy show with an audience is that if they're silent and giving you nothing.
Yeah.
Heckling is fine. Yeah, heckling is fine because there's at least something going on there, and that's just my take. But if they're silent and giving you nothing, and I know there's like pro comedians who, when audiences are silent, they're listening to them. But I'm talking for in general, like if they're silent, they don't like it, then I think that is the worst thing that you can feel. Tell me you hate me, tell me I'm shit and I should go back to my job, but like tell me something. But yeah.
Now, I've interviewed a lot of musicians, and there's a great camaraderie, what's the word I want? Camaraderie between some, and then there's others that are very not generous with their time and their space.
Right.
Right. So I imagine it's the same thing with fellow comedians.
In the sense that we don't have enough time to do our sets. Is that what you mean?
No, I meant like off or on or off the stage, like you're not usually performing with another comedian, you're on there by yourself, but you have a lineup, right? So those other people that are on lined up, like do you form a friendship with them? Are they encouraging, or do you have some that just totally ignore you because they think they're better than everybody?
For the most part, and I'm so happy to say this is like the two best things that I've found about comedy is, one, that the vast majority of professionals that I've met have been very, very helpful to whatever, and if not helpful, then at least really cordial, and they'll take a minute to have an actual conversation with you. Because I feel like in the community, like the comedy community in Toronto is large, but also small at the same time. Right. You'll see most of the same people doing, the shows and in the same kind of rooms. And there's a lot of us, but it's like whoever's working consistently, you'll see them around the scene a lot. And it almost, by the nature of comedy and by the nature of the fact that, comedians are the ones producing the shows, and then your friends, sometimes they take off and they take you along with you, kind of thing. So by the nature of it, I think the environment is built for, being friends and having that camaraderie between each other. Now, of course, it's also very competitive, but then there's the healthy competition, and then there's the, everything else. But for the vast majority, as a newer comedian, I would say it's been amazing for me, like just that part. And then the second thing is that there's literally no barrier to entry. Like you can just go up at an open mic one night and start doing it, and then keep doing it, and as you get better, you can do book shows and stuff. So those are two amazing things about this gig.
I think open mics are a wonderful asset for comedians.
So it's been great.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we're almost out of time. Now if anybody wants to get a hold of you, what's the best way?
Reach out to me on Instagram. It's ABHI, Abhi Pamnani, P as in Patrick, AMNANI, Abhi Pamnani. And yeah, I'm very active there, to the point where my fiance is really pissed when we go on walks. So but yeah, reach out to me there. I'd love to hear it, and if you can, watch a couple videos. If you enjoy them, tell your friends about it. If you don't enjoy them, tell me about it, and I'll try and do better. But yeah.
I tell people, if you don't enjoy it, don't tell me I've got a thin skin.
It's nice, because like I was doing this exercise the other day, and they were like, hey, post a picture of yourself or like a short bit on this writers group or something, and see what other comedians or people who don't know say about you, kind of thing. Just to be like, what is your first impression really like? What is are you so it's always nice to see what people think. I once had somebody on a video comment that they didn't like it, and then I went in back and forth with them on comments, and I don't know why I did that. I just went back and forth explaining why the joke was the way it was, and then they were like, okay, fine, I'm happy now. Like I like what I understand what you said. And then I was like, well, if you did, and thank you so much, and check out other videos, and if you could give a follow if you enjoyed it, and then they just went silent. I'm like, all right, next time.
Next time,
Next
yeah.
time. Yeah, exactly.
Well, thank you so much.
No, thank you.
To being here. Stay on camera. I just want to remind
Yeah, absolutely.
remind the audience that you listened to Abhi Pamnani, and so check him out on Instagram. And he's on Facebook as well, so you can always
Yeah.
if you forget Instagram, Facebook is a really good location for
Yeah.
finding people that
Yeah.
yeah. So thanks everybody for watching this show. I hope you continue to do so. Take care and
Thank you.
peace out, folks.
Peace.
A sense of community, Chilliwack's a place to be. A sense of community where you're free. Rolling through the mountains, rolling through the valley, rolling through paradise with me. It's multicultural, you're sure to see it all. Chilliwack's the place to be, you'll see. Come party in the park, go dancing after dark. Chilliwack's the place to be, you'll see.